this piece, delivered in my faux Tom Waits voice, because I've had laryngitis for 6 months. Stories by a much younger man who didn't sound like this. It's called Billy Burrows' Prediction. We meet, Billy B and I, at Steve Wilson and Larry Lake's Bowery Books on Old South Pearl Street. I'm hanging out with Larry Lake, even though conflict between journeyman and apprentice colors our friendship. As there is in the world, there is tension in our relationship for many reasons. The 70s have ended. The Beats have been lionized, canonized, and beatified, while hippies have been written off as children who stay too long at the party. In the world that hasn't tuned in, turned on, and dropped out, greed grows like weed in a garden that was once America. Now, Larry and I are discussing the literary merit of his 1971 small press magazine forte, Mano Mano 2, which lies open to page 12 on the glass countertop of his display case. We're both rereading the printed facsimile of the Neal Cassady to Justin Brierley letter, wherein the incarcerated Neal writes from the Colorado State Reformatory in Buena Vista to his friend and former guidance counselor at East High in Denver, and asks Justin to pay a small overdue bar tab at a Platt Street saloon. Currently the home of Brothers Bar, the site is one of the better late-night hotspots, serving food to waiters and waitresses getting off work late night in Denver. Hence my familiarity with the place. Legendary, and rightly so, are the jalapeno cheeseburgers served there. As it so happens, Brothers Bar is one of the numerous establishments from which my friend Larry Lake himself is currently 86th, mostly for reasons of art and alcohol, anger and disrespect. You see, Larry once lived across 15th Street, catty corner from Brothers Bar, where he transformed an empty warehouse loft into a noteworthy second-story walk-up art gallery and bohemian crib. The grand opening of his Bowery Gallery is actually the subject of an early 70s independent film entitled The Bowery Gallery. Now, despite Larry's artistic fame and, well, more like infamy, and his dogged ability to attract media attention, for one or more reason, all unknown to me, Larry and the two brothers who own Brothers Bar, well, they had a tumble of mythic proportions sometimes back, the facts and fictions of which I only know as rumor. But anyway, it's oddball ironic that a page torn from Larry's magazine to this day lends notoriety to a place Larry's not even allowed to go into. It hangs to this day by the payphone in the back, a shard of beat debris, something the brothers who banished Larry worship. Now, I'm confessing to Larry that I'm mostly ignorant of Neal Cassady's stature and importance in the literary world, because Jack Kerouac and the antics of his anti-hero Dean Moriarty were not part of my Jesuit high school curriculum. I only know of Neal Cassady as the driver of the bus Further in Ken Kesey's The Electric Acid Test, Kool-Aid Acid Test, a text an old girlfriend laid on me. Believe it or not, just as I'm saying the words Neal Cassady, into the storefront bookshop walk two of Neal Cassady's real-life existential pals. His own legendary partner in beatitude and pop culture myth, the eminent poet Allen Ginsberg, who, as it turns out, happens to be Billy B's not-so-unlikely godfather, and Billy B himself, the author of Speed and Kentucky Ham. Now, as a gesture of goodwill and friendship and kinship with Larry and Steve and me, Allen has come to Bowery Books to autograph some first editions, thereby increasing the value of Bowery Books' Beat Literature collection. And Allen has given young Billy, who has moved here to Denver, Allen's version of the Poetry Tour of Denver. Now, when Allen Ginsberg introduces William S. Burroughs Jr. to Larry Lake and me, the reader, writer, and junkie in Larry immediately recognizes the reader, writer, junkie in Billy. And thus, Larry turns on the charm for his celebrated guests. For the next hour, Larry and Allen banter and gossip tales of mutual friends. Stuart Z. Perkoff, Jimmy Ryan Morris, Diane DePrima, Robert Creeley, David Meltzer, Tony Sabella, while Billy B. and I, we mostly listen. And naturally, or as this story will demonstrate, preternaturally, Billy likewise recognizes the kindredness between himself and Larry. And when Larry suggests that Billy should read sometime something from one of his novels at Cafe de Pente's, the poetry reading that Marcia and I host in lower downtown Denver, Billy, who is known to demand big bucks for a reading, accepts all without discussing payment. I figure he's hoping to score in terms of reading material from the bookstore, turn-ons, and connections. Now, over the course of the next year or so, I pursue a friendship with the creature that is Billy. I say creature because not unlike Frankenstein, Billy B., he's come back from the dead. Another's liver keeps him alive. One of a woman named Virginia, whose brain failed at about the same time that Billy's original liver did. Now, Billy lives at the Oxford Arms, 8th and Colorado. There's a Trader Joe's there now. One of a pair of 16-plex apartments just south of University Hospital on the east side of Colorado. On number 16, his door, is a handwritten announcement that emphatically states,
"If you're not from Boulder, you're not welcome. Go home." That means you.
Now, when I read that admonition for the first time, I'm annoyed, wondering if I'm to be dismissed as not from Boulder. For from what I've learned from my study of modern Merlot poetics, Denver, my adopted hometown, is in fact the birthplace of beat sensibility. I even have a copy of a letter to Ed White that I got from Larry Lake, in which Jack Kerouac himself does declare the rank of Denver's own Neal Cassady's writing to be among the greatest of America and modern Europe. Now, Billy's furnished apartment is as messy and muddled as is his health. A couch lines the south wall, out of the center of which sticks the non-business end of a bayonet, the blade buried to the hilt in the coffin stuffing, with its tip in the wall behind. Above the couch is an assemblage of magazine photo cutouts. Now, the number of cigarette burn holes in the seat of the couch is alarming, given the number of people who live in this building. One generally does not consider the possible carelessness of others when signing a lease. And Billy's cigarette burn holes, well, they spell jeopardy. They spell danger. On the stove sits a stew that never really runs out, as Billy B. adds to it whatever edibles he has on hand. When I lift the lid, I'm reminded more of slurry sludge than food. Whatever vegetables might have been in that mix have, over time and constant reheating, been reduced to mush. Even the remains of a hot dog that Billy claims to have added just yesterday, they seem to liquefy. Needless to say, my ex-Italian mother-in-law, or my current German mother-in-law, would not be caught dead in Billy's kitchen. Skeeve, filth would be their refrains. Now, Billy and I, we do literary events together, and Billy, per the arrangement we made the day we met, he does read at Cafe de Pente's, my current Tuesday night Market Street gig. Now, I collect 20 when I pass the hat, and had 30 myself, so Billy's pay turns out to be a cool $50 for a half hour's reading. Hey, that's better pay than my lawyers, I remark when I hand him the cash. Now, immediately after his featured reading, I take Billy home to his apartment, as he has scant interest in the late night world that I revel in, and he has no interest in the poets and poet tasters who attend. And granted, my waiter's hours are not exactly simpatico with Billy's pain relief schedule. I drive him in my Dodge Tradesman van a couple of times to Naropa and Boulder to visit Alan and other visiting literary luminaries. Now, Billy enjoys the attention the Naropaites, students and teachers alike, shower upon him. After all, he is no literary slacker. He's already had 2 novels published and sundry articles in national magazines, including one in Time. Now, on subsequent visits to Billy's apartment, he reads me some very poignant and humorous stories about his stay in the hospital after his liver transplant, about wandering the corridors and deep basements in the wee hours of hospital late shifts, running once into a wide-eyed, burned black, crispy corpse on an elevator gurney, and into a lot of over-medicated maintenance men. Now, despite the humor of his intellect, as demonstrated in his writing, if truth be told, Billy is, for the most part, a sad sack. He knows this new lease on life he's been given is a short-term lease. No matter the star status of his South African transplant of a transplant surgeon, Dr. Starzl. Billy's so medicated from the morphine he injects for the pain of the arthritis that came with the transplant, and from the excessive alcohol.
Schmidt's malt liquor, please.
And from the steroids he takes to ward off organ rejection. Billy once told me,
if I look at a cold, I catch it.
Billy is so medicated that he's mostly a man on the nod. He spends much of his time in an overstuffed chair. Alice in Wonderland is the theme of a collage he has affixed to the wall opposite. Now, on a couple of occasions, I accompany Billy to an apartment north of University Hospital on the west side of Colorado, where an assemblage of hospital junkies gathers to swap pills, drink beer, and generally banter with each other like addicts at an NA meeting, telling drug stories. Except these attendees are not on the wagon, are not taking 13 steps towards anything. In fact, in the middle of the living room, the lessees, Ernie and Ray, 2 Vietnam veterans with serious problems related to their military service and exposure to Agent Orange. Well, Ernie and Ray have placed a 30-gallon plastic trash can. It is filled with empty booze bottles, crushed cigarette packs, and the debris of fast food existence. Most attendees of the daily medication exchange rarely rise to pitch their empty long necks into it. Coors cans and hamburger wrappers, like basketballs into hoops, from the surrounding lawn chair seats. The occasional marijuana that I bring contributed to the get-together is most welcome, as cannabis is something not prescribed across the street at University Hospital, where all the other drugs being swapped originate. Of course, Billy doesn't offer to barter with his morphine. Only some of the minor barbiturates he's been prescribed. Around the circle, I note some curious exchange rates. 5 Valium for 1 Thorazine, carton of Camels for a Dilaudid. But there's more to Billy than drugs and despair. More than woe is pitiful me. For Billy B, he's a gentleman and a scholar. Hell, Billy has died and been born again. Not in a born-again Christian way, but in a born-again beatnik sort of way. He writes beautiful poems on scraps of Safeway paper bags, and he seems to possess a special gift, a heightened intuitive sense that, as this story will demonstrate, is painfully true. His discontent and disgust, his despair and respect are based on experience, not political opinion. Yet, hidden amongst the unkept and sometimes bitter persona that Billy shows most of the world, there resides a spirit more angelic than demonic. Perhaps Billy got more than a liver from Virginia, for there are other worldly qualities to Billy. As if all the pain and medication and fear of dying have parted the the veil betwixt now and forever. Sometimes, some occasions, Billy sports a trickster smile in the shadow of his derby hat that seems to enlighten even the very dark corners of Ernie and Ray's misaligned minds. Happy birthday, Billy. So anyway, I throw a birthday party for Billy, his 33rd and last. In attendance in my house on South Pearl are Billy, his drug swap buddies Ernie and Ray, my buddy Larry Lake and his new bride Barbara, entrepreneurial bakers Marie and Melvin Newman, the artist Kelly Sims, best man at my wedding Lenny Chernilla, the poet Andy Clausen, myself and my wife. The menu's East Coast Italian, antipasto Caesar salad, sausage and spaghetti with a marinara sauce from scratch. The birthday cake is an over-the-top, incredibly rich New York cheesecake, the secret recipe for which was the only thing I got out of my first marriage. Anyway, after Billy blows out the 33 candles that yin-yang atop his birthday cake, there are good wishes wished and toasts toasted to a future that proves shorter and bleaker than anyone but Billy might have guessed. And then after a pause, Billy, with his stoned eyes a-sparkling, makes a prediction, prognosticating with a correct question directed at my wife, Marcia.
So, when are you gonna make your big announcement?
Marcia blushes a bit and stares at Billy imploringly, as apparently she's got no idea what he's talking about and says so.
Come on. Tell us about it.
Tell you what, don't know what you're talking about. Billy smiles, sighs, and rephrases his request.
When are you gonna tell us about the baby?
Somewhat alarmed, yet with a mixture of naughty delight and hopeful anticipation, while at the same time defensive, Marcia soundly refutes the thrust of Billy's innuendo. I certainly am not pregnant. Billy sighs again, smiles again, and adds,
Yes. So you think, but nonetheless, you are. I would never kid about something like this. Being pregnant is not funny. Believe me, you are going to have a baby.
The next day, bothered yet excited by Billy's prediction, Marcia buys an early pregnancy test. Sure enough, she's pregnant. I guess we were not as careful as usual the night of Tommy Larkin's wedding. Too much wine and too much passion will do that to young lovers at an Irish Catholic wedding. So the following March, some 3 weeks before the birth of my first son, sadly, Billy dies. The story I hear is that after Ronald Reagan's inauguration in January of 1981, our fine new president's first presidential directive, his first volley in his war on drugs, is to forbid the use of morphine for hospital outpatients, a directive that greatly affects Billy and his pain relief schedule. Denied his prescribed outpatient morphine regimen, one he's grown totally addicted to, Billy opts to split Denver and return to Florida, where he'd spent some very happy days prior to his liver failure and transplant. The urban myth is that on that 2,500-mile bus ride from Denver to Gainesville, Billy looks at a cold and catches it, a cold that within short order kills him. Demonstrative proof that some transplants aren't what they are cracked up to be, and that steroids and viruses are a lethal mix. Doing the backwards math now, Marcia and I figured that she was a mere 13 days pregnant when Billy made his prediction. Demonstrative proof of Billy's special gift. of his intuitive ability to read others, their condition, their future. A trait he once told me that his grandmother had divined in him. It's just too bad that Billy B never met the proof of his prediction. My son, Passion.